Hello, Tarnished, and welcome back to another Souls-like video. This time, we finally do a review on a Souls-like game that dropped earlier this year, and I've finally finished it. AI Limit. And honestly, it's one of those indie Souls-like games that tries to do a lot with some pretty interesting ideas, but it definitely does show in many aspects that this is the dev's first Souls-like game. Not only that, but the game is developed by Sense Games, marking it as also the studio's first title in the Souls-like genre. At first glance, it looks like a typical challenging action RPG, but what really sets it apart is its AI-driven enemy behaviors. These enemies exhibit unique attack patterns and adapt to player actions, making encounters feel dynamic and challenging. The enemies don't just follow preset patterns, they actually adapt to how you fight, which keeps combat unpredictable, and honestly, a bit nerve-wracking. I think that's a really cool twist because it forces you to stay on your toes, mix up your tactics, and really think about every move instead of just relying on muscle memory. But that unpredictability can sometimes go the other way and feel a bit, unfair at times, especially when you get punished for something you didn't expect because the AI suddenly switches things up on you. The core combat feels solid, the attacks have good weight to them, and dodging and blocking are responsive. And I really enjoyed how they decided to completely get rid of the stamina bar altogether, instead of opting for a sync rate system. In this system, your ability to perform actions like attacking, dodging, or blocking depend on your current sync rate, which acts as a sort of resource meter that fluctuates during combat. The sync rate governs how well you're in sync with the combat flow. When your sync rate is high, you can perform actions smoothly and quickly. If it drops too low due to taking hits, missing timing, or overextending, you become slower or more vulnerable until you regain sync. I also love how they tied this system to the vitality attribute, which primarily affects conversion rate of the sync rate system, which determines how much your sync meter fills from each attack, and also impacts the stability stat, which reduces the amount your sync gauge drops when hit. While vitality contributes to a faster sync rate recovery, the primary way to manage your sync rate is through skillful play, managing your attacks and defenses, and knowing when to take a break to recover it. The sync rate system is a very unique mechanic that emphasizes maintaining rhythm and timing over just managing stamina. The sync rate adds a layer of strategic depth, encouraging you to engage thoughtfully and avoid reckless play. It also ties into how the AI adapts to your combat style, making every fight feel more dynamic. You can't just spam rolls or swings, which keeps fights tense and meaningful. I really liked how the sync rate system keeps you honest and makes every decision important. Plus, the weapons and movesets have a nice variety. Different weapons encourage varied combat approaches, with some favoring aggressive, fast-paced play and others leaning themselves to more defensive or ranged strategies. For example, dual blades might suit a swift, combat-focused playstyle, while greatswords could be better for heavier, more calculated attacks. The game's mechanics, like the sync rate system, also reward certain playstyles, with high sync rate boosting damage for aggressive players. It's not a huge arsenal like some of the bigger Souls games, but enough to let you experiment and find your own style. The enemies aren't over the top, but they do let you know if you mess up, you will get punished pretty hard, which is a good challenge as it keeps you on your toes by reading the enemy attacks and countering them. The combat in this game is actually very fun and engaging when cycling between your spells and 4 skills in quick succession. In the game, you can equip spells and actionable items and use them in combat by pressing the corresponding button on your platform. These actions, along with others like special attacks and blocking, consume your sync rate meter. Additionally, AI Limit features 4 arm abilities that can be equipped and utilized in combat. The player's mechanical arm has 4 main abilities within its spell frame: Counter Field, which is the parry, shield, quick step, and ghostly claw. The counter field allows for parrying enemies' attacks, while the shield absorbs damage and can unleash an overload blast. Quickstep is a dash maneuver, and the ghostly claw, while self-damaging, can be used to enhance melee attacks. I also loved the fact that you can quickly swap between your weapons for big combo chains, making it so different, and build setups have serious potential in this game. The world itself is very interesting, to say the least, though it's a bit smaller and more compact than what you might expect if you're used to something like Dark Souls or Elden Ring. But Elden Ring is an open world game, so comparing this game to that is completely unfair. The levels are designed thoughtfully, with branching paths, shortcuts, and hidden secrets that reward exploration. The environments have a consistent, dark, almost industrial vibe mixed with corrupted natural areas, which creates a moody atmosphere. Visually, the game isn't top-tier AAA quality. There are rough textures here and there, and some animations feel a little stiff, but the art style works and the lighting effects do a lot to set the mood. Now, boss fights. Well, they are definitely the heart and soul of AI Limit. There are 24 bosses in total, and they vary a lot in style and difficulty. Some, like the early Iron Reaper, have 2 clear phases where the second phase changes up attack patterns dramatically, forcing you to learn and adapt on the fly. Others, like the Shadow Weaver, mix magic and stealth attacks in ways that require patience and timing. These fights feel really rewarding once you learn the mechanics, and the bosses have memorable designs blending mechanical and organic elements. However, with that being said, not every single boss nails it every time. A few tend to lean into overwhelming attacks that can feel a bit spammy or unfair, which made some fights frustrating rather than fun. Sometimes it felt like I was playing Street Fighter and the other player kept hitting the leg sweep over and over again. This started to make it feel like less of actual strategized attack patterns and more of just the AI of the overall game just being spammy. Some of the bosses even have moves that are almost impossible to parry or dodge, having very minute windows to perform these actions, and if you don't get them, then you're immediately one-shot. It's that fine line between challenging and cheap difficulty. And AI Limit sometimes stumbles on that completely. This is really one of the areas that shows that the devs don't understand what truly makes a good Souls-like game, or the core mechanics of what a Souls-like game should have. Still, most bosses are well balanced and have interesting attack patterns that keep you engaged. The AI adapting aspect can also add another layer to the game, so bosses will sometimes switch tactics depending on how you approach them, which can keep you guessing. Sound design and music add a lot to the experience. The soundtrack is minimal but effective. It uses haunting, eerie themes that really amp up the tension during exploration and boss fights. Enemy sounds and weapon strikes feel weighty and satisfying, which is crucial for a game that relies heavily on precise combat timing. There's very minimal voice acting, but the sparse storytelling fits the mysterious, desolate world. Speaking of storytelling, the narrative in AI is subtle, which is pretty typical for the genre. You piece together the lore by exploring, reading item descriptions, and observing environmental storytelling. It's not upfront and center, but adds enough depth to keep you curious. A lot of the lore is found through little scraps of paper scattered around each and every one of the areas, making you find the lore as you explore. This is also another aspect of the game that encourages exploration throughout your playthrough. However, Sometimes I feel like this can make you confused as to what the story actually is. While there is very minimal cutscenes, there is still some, and unless you uncover and read a lot of the lore you find by exploring the game, then it can make the overall story confusing, as you will find yourself at the end of the game not understanding what the ending actually means. The overall feel of the story feels like it's missing a lot of things, and that it's not very well thought out. One thing to note is the difficulty curve, which, if you have played any other Souls-like game, there is none. If you know how to time your parries, most enemies and bosses can be trivialized or basically non and void at the end of the day. But I love how this is the first Souls-like game that I've played that actually made me want to bother to even learn how to parry, because it feels so good. This can be rewarding if you enjoy learning enemy patterns and mastering combat, but it can be off-putting if you prefer a more forgiving experience that allows you more dodging and button mashing your way through all the enemies. However, AI Limit doesn't encourage using the dodge at all and is more like Sekiro in a way, encouraging you to parry all the enemies you face. The checkpoint system is decent, not too punishing, but you have to be careful because deaths do have consequences. In the game, death has a unique consequence. Instead of losing all collected crystals upon death, players lose a percentage of them, with the exact amount determined by their equipped nucleus. This mechanic introduces a risk-reward system, as players can choose nuclei that either increase their crystal absorption rate or their crystal retention rate upon death. This differs from traditional Souls-like games where players lose all their currency and must retrieve it from where they died. In terms of content and replayability, there's a solid amount here for an indie title. Besides the main story, there are secret areas, side bosses, and collectibles that expand the world and lore, including optional areas that you don't have to go into, as well as optional bosses. But if you're a completionist when it comes to bosses like me, I highly recommend going through and fighting all of them before you beat the final boss. Once you fight the final boss, it will instantly put you into a new game plus, so if you want to get them all on your first run, take your time to go through and find them all. However, one of the bosses is only available to you depending on the story ending that you are following, and if you don't do the story properly, you can't fight it at all. But as a bonus for replayability, because the AI adapts, replaying certain fights can feel different as enemies change their tactics, so no one playthrough or fight feels like the last. With that being said, the game isn't massive, so once you've beaten it and explored most secrets, there's less incentive to come back unless you want to try different builds or go for mastery. There is also multiple quest lines in the story that exist between different characters, but they are designed to be independent of each other. Completing one quest line does not lock players out of others, allowing for flexibility in how players experience the game's narrative. This design choice enables players to explore different character interactions and storylines without the pressure of making choices that limit their options for future quests. So you could essentially finish every quest line in your first go and never have to come back to another playthrough, unlike Elden Ring, which locks you out of certain things if you don't do them a certain way. Overall, I'd say AI Limit is a game for beginner Souls-like fans who want to get into the Souls-like genre without getting beat down too hard. It's very ambitious, with some clever design choices and memorable boss fights, but it can also be very uneven in places, and the difficulty spikes can feel unfair, but I do think this is a very good beginner-friendly game for someone who hasn't played a lot of Souls-like games. And really guys, that's my honest take on AI Limit. For me, it's sitting at a 4 out of 10, and trust me, I wanted to love it more than that. It's got this incredible premise, the ruined cities, the biomechanical nightmares, the existential dread inspired by Nier, Blame, Mad Max, Fallout, Metro, Bloodborne, and BioShock. All these influences are there. The blueprint is so good. But when it comes to actually playing it, the execution just doesn't rise to the promise. The combat can feel clunky instead of crisp. The world, while haunting at first, struggles to stay engaging over time, and the payoff for digging into all that hidden lore doesn't always feel worth the grind. Still, even if it didn't land for me, I do think it's the kind of game that's gonna stick with some people, and the heart of it all is the familiar, brutal question every great Souls-like asks. How much are you willing to sacrifice, and suffer, and lose to claw your way forward in a world that's already lost? AI Limit just twists that even further, asking if all that sacrifice even matters when the line between human and monster is already gone. So if you've played AI Limit, I really want to hear from you. Did you feel the same? Did the atmosphere pull you in deeper than it did for me? Was the combat satisfying, or did it get old fast? And what's your score? Did you stick with it, or did you bounce off? Drop it all in the comments. I read every single one, and I genuinely want to know what hit or missed for you. If this review really helped you, smash that like button. It really does help push this channel out to more lost wanderers like yourself. And if you want more deep, brutal, honest takes, boss breakdowns, hidden lore secrets, and Souls-like rants that don't pull punches, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and stick around for more. As well, if you haven't already, head on over to Twitch at limerivt to watch me play Souls-like games on the daily. Thank you guys so much for watching, and whether you're giving AI Limit another shot or moving on to your next doomed adventure, stay sharp out there. I'll see you in the ruins. Goodbye, Wanderer. Bye, bye, bye.